Angad, let me begin by you. This is about 40-45 second long clip. What do you make of it? Was this intentional? Was this a pilot error?
Yeah, to start off, it was definitely a pilot error. I think it was definitely a pilot error because, things do get hairy on intercepts like this when the Chinese intercept people over the South China Sea or indeed the Russians over what they consider their backyard. But at no point does a professional pilot ever want to touch another aircraft with his own aircraft, because there's no telling what can go wrong. It's not so much a question of Sukhoi versus MQ-9 or anything like that. It's just that any intentional contact between the two aircraft could result in disaster for the ramming aircraft. In this case, the Sukhoi. So I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just, shall we say, a mistake, poor airmanship.
So it was poor airmanship. That's what the Americans also seem to indicate. But once again, the dumping of fuel, the images that we see on our television screens right now, the jettisoning of fuel, does that appear to be intentional to disorient the drone, to ensure the cameras don't function?
Absolutely, it's intentional. The Sukhoi has a fuel dump system that pours fuel into the afterburner section of the engine, and then when the afterburner doesn't ignite, you withhold ignition, and the fuel just streams out of the jet with the jet exhaust. Now, I don't think that was done so much to blind the sensors as much as it could have been to shut down the drone. Because if you look at the path the Sukhoi is flying, it looks like he's trying to overtake the drone and then sort of envelope it in that dumped fuel. And I think that could be a tactic to try and starve the engine of the MQ-9 and trigger a flame out or something like that, and have it recovered more or less intact by Russian forces, if that's possible, or just ward it off by accomplishing a mission, an end to that mission. Because the sensors have all have glass apertures that at that speed, at that height, fuel would pretty much just wash off of those. So I think it was more to shut down the engine.
Okay. Ambassador Sajjanhar, in your view, would this lead to an escalation, a diplomatic standoff, or are the Americans just likely to perhaps protest and then move on, sir?
You know, at the moment, meaning it definitely has the potential of an escalation. But I think what the Americans are doing is that they are not, wanting to ratchet up the tension. We've been saying right from the beginning, when the war started last February, that there are all the chances of an accident taking place. And this, of course, however you characterize it, however you qualify it, because, I don't know, you'll have to define what a pilot error is. Because error is when you don't want to do something and something happens. But here, obviously, we have seen that, the fuel was dumped on the drone, and it was not unintentional. It was done intentionally. It was not an error by the pilot. Now, as far as the Sukhoi and the MQ-9, they coming in contact and they colliding and clashing, that also cannot be, meaning either it is very, very unprofessional on the part of the pilot of the Sukhoi that it has happened. But obviously it has happened, and what is said is that even the Sukhoi has been damaged, and the drone has gone down to the Black Sea. So I think this is an accident that has happened. I am sure that neither of the two sides wanted this to happen. So it would really, depend upon the sagacity and the maturity of the two sides, that they don't overplay, they don't ratchet up the emotions beyond a point. Of course, making it very clear that this is the Americans making it very clear, number one, that they were flying in international airspace, and number two, that this sort of action will not be tolerated.